Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Barron, your host, and welcome to my podcast. That's Life, I Swear. The Ukraine war with Russia has seen the world come to the aid of Ukraine, along with NATO. It's even given new life to a group of reporters who have been vital to the people of Europe. Radio Free Europe was created in 1949. It represents a commitment to promoting democracy, human rights, and freedom of expression. Its mission is fact-based journalism by local reporters in local languages. That's only a part of the story. You see, it was once part of the C.I.A. Let's jump into this. Radio Free Europe was a radio broadcasting organization that was established in 1949 during the early years of the Cold War. Now, its purpose was to promote democracy and provide uncensored news and information to the people of Eastern and Central Europe who were living under Soviet-dominated governments. Now, originally, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty were separate organizations. Their origins were the brainstorms of George F. Kennan, United States Department of State, and Frank G. Wisner, Office of Policy Coordination, later the United States Central Intelligence Agency. Now, the goal of these organizations was to leverage the talents of post-World War II Soviet and Eastern Europe people who left their respective countries for political reasons in support of American foreign policy. Now, the organization was initially funded by the U.S. government in its broadcasts and were aimed at countries such as Czechoslovakia, Hungary, and Poland. During the 1950s and 60s, Radio Free Europe played a crucial role in providing free and independent news to the people of Eastern Europe, such as Estonia and Latvia in 1975. As we jump to the 1970s and 1980s, the organization became increasingly important as the Soviet Union exerted greater control over Eastern Europe. During this time, Radio Free Europe continued to broadcast accurate and uncensored news to the people of the region, and its broadcasts were an important source of information for pro-democracy movements in countries like Czechoslovakia and Poland. From 1949 to 1971, the C.I.A. funded both organizations. World War II was over, but the Cold War was in play. The C.I.A. provided funding for Radio Free Europe during the Cold War as part of the U.S. government's efforts to counteract Soviet propaganda and influence in Eastern and Central Europe. The goal of the organization was to provide uncensored news and information to countries behind the Iron Curtain and support democratic movements in those countries. The funding was intended to help maintain the independence and impartiality of the radio station, which was officially separate from the U.S. government, but widely believed to be a C.I.A. front. However, let's be serious. The C.I.A. wanted to control the narrative and world opinion so as to persuade public view of Europe not to fall into the trap of communism. When the C.I.A. stopped its involvement, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty were funded by congressional appropriation through the Board for International Broadcasting, and then after 1995, the Broadcasting Board of Governors. The two corporations were merged into one in 1976. With Congress's funding, it gave Radio Free Europe the editorial independence it has today. With the official fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, the mission for Radio Free Europe changed. The organization's focus was aimed at promoting democratic reforms and supporting civil society in the newly independent countries of Eastern and Central Europe. In 1995, the organization became part of the newly established Radio Free Europe / Radio Liberty, which continued to provide independent news and information to the countries of the region and to support the development of democratic societies. Radio Free Europe delivered news targeted at communist and non-communist elites, as well as the general population. It was a voice for descendants and opposition movements that in the late 1980s and early 1990s would surface as leaders of the new post-communist democracies. Today, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty remains an important source of news and information for people and countries such as Russia, Ukraine, and continues to play a critical role in promoting democratic values and practices in the region. Now fast forward to today. The war in Ukraine has given Radio Free Europe new life, a reawakening, if you will. What has given the organization the strength of its new broadcasting is that it leverages local news reporters and delivers the news in the respective country's native tongue. Such a process gives credence to what the audience hears and sees. Over time, the Radio Free Europe organization moved its headquarters from Munich, Germany, to Prague, Czech Republic. Now today, Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty is only a radio broadcasting unit. With Putin's tight reins on news outlets, the majority of its Russian-language audiences finds its reporting online and primarily through social media platforms. The organization today does very well with its audience base by drawing an average of about 40 million people weekly. In addition, they broadcast in 27 languages and 23 countries. With Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022, Radio Free Europe's mission and importance was amplified even more. Now, much to the surprise of the organization, Russia's invasion of Ukraine brought in new audiences who wanted to know the current status of the war. Just in the first week of Russia's invasion, traffic to Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty websites tripled to approximately 70 million people. More than half of that traffic came from Russia and Ukraine. As mentioned earlier, viewers went to various social media channels for news from Radio Free Europe. One channel was YouTube, where the channel is still accessible today. The work the organization has been providing during the Ukraine war has been vital to those who want to hear the truth. Its distinctive service is news delivery to specific program broadcasts, not only by region, but in the respective local language. You just don't realize how much weight that carries. Providing audiences with unvarnished news is essential. During the outbreak of the Ukraine war, many journalists, more so the younger generation, left Russia for good. One of those journalists was 29-year-old Anastasia Deschenko. The decision to leave was difficult. Leaving her country was one thing to do, but dealing with a falling out with her parents over Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Her parents, born in Ukraine, of all places, believe Putin's narrative of events. Now, she has no idea if or when she'll ever get to go home. But for now, her focus is proving those who want to hear the truth will hear it, and will hear it without interference. So what can we learn from this story? What's the takeaway? On November 9th, 1989, thousands of people around the world watched as the most visible symbol of division at the heart of Europe, the Berlin Wall, came crashing down. Seeing this visual gave everyone the feeling of hope that communism had finally run its course, and all would be well. Well, that thought was short-lived. Today, President Putin is on a road wanting to rebuild the Russian empire that once was. Unfortunately, he's become a fanatic over this goal. As long as we have to deal with maniacs like Putin and others, Radio Free Europe will be there to speak truth to power. Their mission statement captures it very well. Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty's mission is to promote democratic values by providing accurate, uncensored news and open debate in countries where a free press is threatened and disinformation is pervasive. Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty reports the facts, undaunted by pressure. Well, there you go. That's life, I swear. For further information regarding the material covered in this episode, I invite you to visit my website, which you can find on either Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, for show notes calling out key pieces of content mentioned and the episode transcript. As always, I thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe here or wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss an episode. See you soon.